Hey guys, this is Andrew with rockclass101.com, and in this week's ukulele lesson, I'm going to be teaching you a punk rock tune that I wrote, which is a love letter to my youth. When I was in ninth grade, I fell in love with bands like Blink-182 and Green Day, and their music was the catalyst that pushed me to actually pick up my instrument and practice, because before that, I wasn't always the greatest or the best student. So this genre of music really holds a special place in my heart. Now, if you are a fan of Blink-182, the song you just heard will be very, very familiar. This is a tune that I would describe as in the style of, and as such, I decided to call it Punk 182. Now, let's talk a little bit about the difficulty of this tune. This is a song that I would say is best suited for the beginner intermediate player. So what our left hand and our right hand is doing isn't really challenging, but the challenging aspect of it comes when you perform with the band, especially aiming to play it up to speed. So let's take a step back now. Let's talk a little bit about this lesson. So in this video, I'm going to be teaching you how to play the entire tune, but if you want to get the tabs to print off and follow along with, that's going to be available at this link right here. Or you can go to the site, rockclass101.com, do a search for Punk 182. Now also on that page will be the really cool interactive on-screen tab viewer. Now this is a great feature where you can hit play, you can watch the tab scroll across in real time, you can highlight bars to loop sections, slow it down to any speed you wish, just a great asset in learning this tune that much easier. So last but not least, there will be backing tracks on that page that you can download. So once you learn how to play the ukulele part, you'll be able to rock out with the band at home. And I'll go ahead and upload 100% speed backing track, 75% speed, and if you can feel the beat at 50%, I'll upload that as well. All right, so before we jump into learning it, there's a couple things we need to touch on real quick. The first one is you do need a low G ukulele for this tune, so grab the low G to follow along with. The second thing I want to talk about is our right hand approach for finger picking and strumming. So let's start with finger picking. Now this tune, you could use a 4-finger approach where each finger gets its own string. You could simplify it to a 3-finger approach where thumb gets double duty, so 4 and 3, index gets string 2, middle finger gets string 1. But with this tune, we're going to have a lot of parts where you see melody notes fall back to back to back all across one string. For example, the opening of the riff. That opening of the riff is all played on the C string. And as such, I'm going to be using piccato picking, which is fancy terminology that just means alternate picking. But you can see I lead with the middle, follow with the index. Now, if this is a new technique for you, I jump into this lesson. It's called La Gitanita. It is a flamenco tune that is super awesome sounding and a lot of fun to play. But in that lesson, I break down the mechanics behind piccato picking technique. So give it a shot for this tune as well if you haven't done it before, because it makes your right hand way more efficient. It's a lot easier to play notes in rapid succession using 2 fingers than having to work twice as hard going with 1 finger. Now, as far as our right hand strumming technique, we're doing nothing fancy. We're just going to be doing basic down and up strumming. We will have a chunk technique that we're adding as well as a muted strum, but we'll talk about that when we get to it in the lesson. Okay, so that's basically everything I want to cover. Let's go ahead and jump into the lesson. And the first thing that we have to know is that we actually do not start playing until measure number 9. So for the riff, we are going to be counting 8 bars of rest. So the guitar player plays the riff by himself for the first 8 bars. So you want to count the part where you're not playing as such. You want to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 3, 4, 4, 2, 3, 4, 5, 2, 3, 4, 6, 2, 3, 4, 7, 2, 3, 4, 8, 2, 3, 4. So you want to count it that way, because if you count it as 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, you stand the chance of getting lost, right? If you count it the first way, you always know what measure you are on. So we used to do that in music college, and that's exactly how they taught us, because there were a lot of times where we had 32 bar breaks where maybe the bass player would play and the guitar player would just sit out. So you had to count 32 bars like that, but you never got lost. So that is my recommendation for the opening 8 bars. Make sure you just count it the first way. Now, let's go ahead and put up the tab for the first couple bars of music, and we can see measure 9 and 10. So we're coming in on measure 9. So let me go ahead and play these 2 bars, and then we'll break it down and learn it. So that's a good gist of what our first couple bars sound like. Now, again, as I mentioned just a couple minutes ago, give the piccato picking technique a shot for this opening line. It's going to make your right hand finger picking much, much more efficient. Now, the second thing we want to take note of, again, is that everything we're playing for these opening 2 measures is on the C string. So here's a good little cheat sheet for knowing which finger to use for your left hand. If you see a 2nd fret, you're going to use the index finger. If you see a 4th fret, you'll use your ring finger. And if you see a 5th fret, you will use your pinky finger. And that will hold true for this entire riff up until the very last measure, but we'll talk about that when we get there. So let's start with just measure number 9 by itself. Sounds like that. So we start with 2 opens, then we go to the 4th fret, and we're going to play that twice as well. And then we go to the 2nd fret. Now, rhythmically, you want to match that. So don't be afraid to sing it. Da 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 da. Right? If you can sing it, you can play it. Now, for this riff, I would actually recommend just looping it, because looping it will give you a lot of practice. Instead of going 1, 2, 3, 4, da 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 da, right? Counting yourself in, I would just go ahead and loop these bars. Over and over again until you get comfortable with it. And you can even backtrack this video and jump in with me. Now, I know I'm going basically up to speed, so it's going to be fast for some folks. So if it is a bit too fast for you, you can always use the cog in the YouTube player to slow it down so you can play along with me. Now let's take a look at measure number 10. This one, we're going to be playing quarter notes. We're going to play open, 5, 4, 2. So we're literally just walking straight down that C string. So we have 0, 5, 4, 2, 0, 5, 4, 2, 0, 5, 4, 2. Okay, so same approach. You can just loop that over and over again. And when you feel comfortable looping 1 bar at a time, you really want to practice 2 bars at a time, because 2 bars at a time is really what makes it sound like a musical phrase. 1 bar at a time sounds a little bit abrupt and open-ended, while 2 bars at a time really gives it that complete riff sound. So let's see if we can try it together. I'm going to play it 3 times in a row. See if you can jump in for the 2nd or the 3rd time. Nice. Now let's go ahead and move on to measure 11 and 12. So what do we notice? Looks oddly familiar, right? It's exactly identical to the previous 2 bars. So in reality, with this opening part of the riff, you're going to play it 2 times in a row. So just 2 times in a row. So let's go ahead and move on to the next part of the riff. So this is going to be measure 13 and 14. So for measure 13 and 14, it's going to sound like this. So what do we notice? Rhythmically identical to the previous couple bars that we just learned, but now we're playing out of a different chord and we have different notes that we're fretting. So here's the kicker with this. part. We want to take our index finger, we want to lay flat on the second fret, strings 4 and 3. So I'm literally going to be applying finger pressure only on these top 2 strings. The bottom 2 strings, the second and the first string, doesn't really matter. You don't have to do a full bar chord where you're applying pressure across all 4 strings. You just need to push down for string 4 and 3. So that makes this a little bit easier, and it technically makes this a partial bar chord. So we're still using the same rule of thumb we did before. If you see a second fret, it's going to be your index finger. If you see a fourth fret, it's going to be your ring finger. If you see a fifth fret, it's going to be your pinky finger. So keep that in mind and you'll know which left hand finger to use. Now let's start with just measure 13 by itself, which sounds and looks like that. So we're going to start by playing 2 on the 4th string twice. Then we're going to take our ring, put it on the 4th fret of string 3, play that twice, then lift that up and play the 2nd fret on the 3rd string. Remember, that is our partial bar, so we're pushing down for string 4 and 3. So we have 2, 2, 4, 4, 2. So let's see if we can try that a few times in a row. Okay, now to finish it up, we're going to play the 2nd fret on string 4, back to the 4th fret on string 3, lift up, 2nd fret on string 3, and then pinky, 5 on string 4. So quarter notes, and if we loop it, that's what we end up with. So this one is harder than the first one because we have to keep that partial bar held down throughout. So it's a bit tricky because it requires a bit of finger strength out of the index finger. But if I play those 2 bars together a few times, see if you can jump in on the 2nd or the 3rd time with me. Nice. So going into the next 2 bars, which are actually the last 2 bars of the riff, it's going to sound like this. So let's start with just 15. Very, very easy. We're going to play the open G twice. Then we're going to play the 2nd fret on string 3 twice. And then the open C. So we have O, O, 2, 2, O. So very, very easy. Now to finish it up, we're going to break away from using the index for the 2nd fret, ring for the 4th fret, pinky for the 5th fret. We're going to break away from that and we're going to use just the index to walk ourselves up, because the next section of the tune is the strumming part. And if we walk ourselves up with the index, we'll be in position to hit the chord on time for the rhythm part. So we're going to go open G, 2nd fret, 4th fret, 5th fret. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4. So very simple. If we put it together, we have nice. Now, that is the entire riff. If I cycle through it one time through, it looks and sounds like this. So let's do this. Let's see if we can play along with AJ and the band, and we will do at 100% speed. So again, if you need to slow it down, then feel free to use the YouTube cog to go to a slower tempo that's best suited for you. But I'm going to start the play along at the very beginning. So I want you all to practice counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 3, 4, all the way through those 8 bars, and then jump in on measure 9, and you're going to play all the way to the end of 16. Now for our second section of this tune, we're going to go into strumming. So we've got the chord section right here. And there's 4 chords that we're going to be playing out of. They're all power chords, which literally means that you only have 2 notes in the chord, which is the root plus the 5th. So let's learn these 4 chord shapes first before we learn the strum pattern. The first one is a C5. So take your index, put it on the 5th fret of string 4. Your ring finger goes on the 7th fret of string 3. Pinky is the 8th fret of string 2. Now here's the kicker. When I strum down, you can see I'm strumming across all 4 strings, but I'm only hearing the top 3. So we need to mute string number 1. And there's one of 2 ways you can do it. You can use the index finger, which lightly touches string 1. So I'm lightly touching string 1 with my index finger. If I lift all the way up, you can hear string 1 rings out. If I lean it down to lightly touch it, I can mute it. I can do the same thing with the pinky finger. So instead of being on the fingertip completely curved where the A string rings out, if I bring it down a little bit slightly, I can lightly touch it with my pinky finger, and that'll mute it as well. So you have 2 options for muting, either with the index or the pinky finger. But you do have to mute that because it will sound a little bit clashy if we let it ring out. So that is probably the hardest part about this strumming section, is muting this first string right there. Now this is our first chord, so 5, 7, 8 is a C5. Our second chord that we're going to be strumming is a G5. If you make a basic G chord, get rid of the middle finger, and we're going to strum just the top 4, 3, and 2 string. Same thing applies, we have to mute string number 1. For this one, I'd recommend using your ring finger. So instead of being perfectly curved on the fingertip, go ahead and bend it downwards so you can touch string 1 and mute it. So that's going to be the easiest way to mute string 1 with this G5. Okay, so take a second just to get comfortable going C5 to G5. And you can see that I'm just strumming across all 4, and I'm really listening to make sure I mute string number 1. Now our third chord is an A5. It's going to be the exact same shape as the C5. We're just going to start it on the 2nd, the 4th, and the 5th fret. Same thing applies. We want to touch string 1 so it's muted. And then finally we're going to have an F5 chord. So this F5 chord is going to be a different shape, and we're going to go ahead and put our index finger on the 1st fret of string number 2 and our ring finger on the 3rd fret of string number 1. Now for this one, you want to target your strum to be 3rd string down. If you do hit the 4th string, that's fine. It'll just add a little bit of color to this chord, but try to aim for strumming from 3 down. So this last shape is probably the easiest one to fret out of all of them because we don't have to do any of that muting of the A string. So cycling through the last 2, we had A5 to F5. So A5 to F5. So at this point, you just want to take a second, get comfortable going C5, G5, A5, F5. And watch out for those muted strings, so make sure you listen for that as well. Now when you get comfortable cycling through all 4 of those chords, let's go ahead and add the strum pattern in. So if we look at measure 17 and 18, let's go ahead and note the first thing that we see. We can see that we are playing the C5 chord for both of these measures. So that's the first thing we want to notice. The second thing we want to notice is the strum pattern we're playing. We're playing a quarter note followed by eighth notes. So rhythmically we have 1, 2, and 3, and 4 end. If we call out the strum pattern, we have down, down, up, down, up, down, up. But we're going to go one step further. For beat 4, we're going to add a chunk. And then for the end of 4, we're going to come up with a muted up strum. So we're adding a little bit of a percussive element towards the end of this bar. So in reality, you have down, down, up, chunk up. And that last up is a muted strum. So that sounds like this. So that's what it sounds like. Now let's go ahead and make the C5 chord. And let's just start with the easy part, which is down, down, up, because that is just basic strumming while fretting the chord. So we have down, down, up. So very, very simple. Try that one on your own. Down, down, up. So very, very basic strumming. Now, when it gets tricky is on beat 4, because you have a chunk and then you have a muted up strum. So if you're new to chunking, you want to jump into this lesson right here. This is a lesson taught by Matt Dahlberg, who's one of our teachers on Rock Class 101, and he teaches this chunk and strum technique. So if you're new to it, you definitely got to jump into that lesson to learn how to do it. Now, the trick with doing this chunk is that you lift pressure up. So I've been holding this chord throughout, down, down, up. When I get to the chunk, I'm going to do the chunk and remove pressure at the same time. So that means that I'm lightly touching the string, so I'm not pushing down anymore. Because when I come up for the final up strum, it has to be a muted strum. So if I let go of the pressure, I'm going to set myself up to do the muted up strum perfectly. So that's the trick. So when you come down with the chunk, let go of pressure, and then come up with the muted strum, and you'll be rocking. So all together, we have down, up, chunk, up. Okay, so hit pause, see if you can try that one on your own. Go really, really slow. Down, up, chunk, up. Down, up, chunk, up. See if you can get that nice and tight, keeping timing steady. Because if you look at the next measure, measure 18, it's identical to measure 17. So for these chords, you're literally just going to be playing them 2 times in a row, just like I demoed right there. So once, twice. And it's that simple. So if we take a look at the next couple bars, we switch to the G5, and we are doing the exact same thing. So we have down, up, chunk, up, down, up, chunk, up. If we look at the next couple bars for the A5, we're doing the exact same thing. Down, up, chunk, up, down, up, chunk, up. And then finally, if we look at the last 2 bars for the F5, the exact same thing. So very, very simple. Once you get the strum pattern down once, you have it for each chord. So just keep in mind that you do it 2 times in a row, then switch the chord 2 times in a row, switch the chord 2 times in a row, switch the chord 2 times in a row, equals 8 bars in length. So if I cycle through it once through, I'm going to go C5, G5, A5, F5. Sounds like this. So that's a good gist of what it sounds like one time through. Now I'm holding back a little bit on how hard I'm strumming, and that's because I'm plugged in recording with direct input. If I strum as loud as I feel like I should for punk music to have more oomph and aggression in my playing, the audio is going to clip and sound really bad for you. So go a little bit more energetic with your strumming for this section. Don't be afraid to hold back. That doesn't mean go crazy and go super hard with strumming, but don't be afraid to hold back. This is punk music. It's raw. It's supposed to be a lot of energy in it. So keep that in mind throughout this section. Now, at the end of the strumming part, we are going to switch gears and we are going to go into playing a single note melody. And the melody is really cool because the guitar player, one of the guitar players, is going to be playing the same melody, but they're going to be playing it using different notes from us, the ukulele player, which means that we are creating a harmony for this melodic lead. So let's jump into it. So the first thing we notice is that the melody line is all on one string. It's all on the A string. So for this, we're going to start with our 7th fret with the index finger. And here's the kicker. We're going to hold this out for 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. So the entire first bar plus 3/4 of the second bar. So you've got to hold it out for quite a bit of time. The next note is going to be 10 on the same string. So we're going to play that note, and then we're going to play it again and do a slide up to 12. So it's going to be a bit of a quicker slide. So we have sev, 10 slide. So again, sev, hold, 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 10 slide. Now we're going to come back to 10 with our middle finger, and then to 7 with our index finger. So rhythmically we have sev, hold, 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 10 slide, 10 sev. Try with me. Sev, hold, 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 10 slide, 10 sev. Nice. Now if we take a look at the very last 10 in measure 28, we left that note out for a specific reason. That note is the start of the next phrase in the lead. So let's move the box to the 10 in measure 26, and let's enclose measure 27 in its entirety as well. Take a look at that phrase. You're playing 10 slide, 10 sev. Now move the box to the very last 10 in 28. There's 10. Look at the next 4 bars of tab. Put the box over 29 by itself. What do you notice? Remember, we had 10 in measure 28 plus what we see right now. 10 slide, 10 sev. It's the exact same phrase 2 times in a row. So if you get rid of all this tab, all you have to do is memorize. You have sev, hold, 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 10 slide, 10 sev, again, 10 slide, 10 sev. And it makes it so much easier to play because it simplifies the lead into a very easy to remember pattern. Now, if we go back to looking at the last 4 bars for this lead, let's go ahead and kick off where we left off. So we're going to start by playing 8 on string 2 with our middle finger, then the open A. Then that will buy you time to move your middle finger down to the 3rd fret on string 2. Play that note, then the open A again, and add your ring finger underneath, and strum the double 3. Now rhythmically, sounds like this. So you just want to get that stuck in your head. Da, 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 da. If you can memorize that, it'll make it much easier to tag on at the end of this melodic lead. So if I play through the entire thing, I have this. Very, very cool lead. So again, try to get it stuck in your head. Dum, ba da da dum, ba da 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 do 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 do. If you can sing it, you can play it. And again, the best way to really practice this to get that timing down is to play with the band. So let's do this. Let's see if we can play this entire B section. So the chords plus the melodic lead with AJ. I'm going to keep it at 100% speed, and I'm going to start it a couple bars before this B section so you have time to jump in. So let's give it a shot. Now before we move on to the last section of the tune, I will say that the one area you probably want to target your practice in for the last section is the transition bar from F5 to playing that melodic lead. It's a little bit tricky to go and grab that melody note in time. So target your practice in that transition just to smooth it out. So the end of this song will take us back to the riff. And we're going to play the riff one time through, and the only change happens on the very last measure of it. So it sounds like this. So there's the change that happens. It's the very last measure, measure 40. When we walk up, 0, 2, 4, 5. Instead of playing this last note 5 as a single note, we're just going to strum that C5 chord. So we have 0, 2, 4, strum. Try it with me. O2, 4, C5. And you can see that this C5 just gets held out for the next couple bars, so essentially just hold it until it fades away. And that is the only change that happens at the very end, so we can have a strong ending for this song. So guys, that's going to wrap up this lesson. Now, I had so much fun writing this tune. Again, it's like a love letter to my youth, so this brings back some incredible nostalgic feelings. I hope you enjoyed learning this tune with me. And again, once you get comfortable playing the uke parts on your own, make sure you do jump in and play with the band. We do have backing tracks that are available for download at this link right here. We're going to have 100% speed, 75% speed, and if you can feel the beat, I will upload 50% speed as well. Now you can also find the lesson by going to rockclass101.com, doing a search for Punk 182. Don't forget too, on the page were the tabs that you can print off to keep for your records, plus the really cool interactive on-screen tab viewers. You can literally hit play, watch the tab scroll across in real time, highlight bars to loop sections, slow it down, all that fun jazz. So guys, again, I hope you enjoyed learning this, and I will catch you in the next lesson. Take care.